What's the deal with Hawaii's law that requires you to upgrade your cesspool to a septic tank? We'll talk about that coming up next. Hey, what's going on, friends? This week we're going to talk about a question I get asked really often, and that is about upgrading cesspools to septic tanks. And so just as an introduction, right, cesspools are just holes in the ground that your wastewater goes into and it seeps into the earth and is filtered into the ground that way. Septic tanks are a tank, and they have a holding tank and there's a leach field, and most people are familiar with a septic tank. But in Hawaii, we don't have a lot of connected sewers. So most homes have some type of private wastewater system like a septic tank or a cesspool. And so in 2017, Hawaii passed a state law called Act 25 that year that would require all cesspools to be upgraded to septic tanks or connect to a sewer by the year 2050. And so what that looks like cost-wise is anywhere between $10,000 and $40,000 in most cases, depending on a few things. But it's a pretty significant cost to homeowners. And the significant number is there is an estimated 90,000 cesspools in the state of Hawaii, with the vast majority of them, like 80,000 of them, being here on the Big Island. And so the question becomes, is this something I should worry about as a buyer? Should I not buy a house with a septic tank or a cesspool because I'm going to have to upgrade in the future and incur that cost? And so I have a couple of opinions on this. And so that's what we're going to talk about is, should you really worry about this? And what is the real implications in the future? So the first thing is the fact that there's 90,000 cesspools in the state of Hawaii is a huge number. And if you just do the math, right, how many cesspools need to be converted between now and 2050? That means would need to be about 3,000 cesspools converted a year in order to make that 2050 goal. And right now we do about 150 to 200 is the number that gets upgraded every year. And so from a realistic standpoint, just doing the math, there is zero chance that the state of Hawaii or the people of the state of Hawaii make this upgrade in time, right? So what's essentially going to have to happen is the law is going to have to be changed, right? It's very easy for lawmakers to pass a law that doesn't take effect till 20, 30 years in the future because they're not going to be around to deal with it. And so it can definitely look good on a campaign brochure, sound good in a campaign speech that you pass this law and you're trying to make this change. But when it doesn't take effect for decades, you're not there to have to deal with the actual implications of it. So the reality is this is an extremely unrealistic law. And if you look at it just from a mathematical standpoint on how many cesspools would have to be converted, we don't have the contractors, the manpower, the resources to make that happen, to do essentially over 10 times the amount that are happening right now. Right now we're doing about 1/10 the number of upgrades that need to happen in order to make the 2050 goal. And so that's a big problem. The second huge problem is that it's not realistic from just a home and property layout standpoint. When you have built out subdivisions that may have retaining walls and fences and all kinds of, another dwelling or a shed built on it, to get to the area where your cesspool is may not be realistic, right? You may not be able to get to it. And so what are we going to require these homeowners to do in order to upgrade? What if they don't have the room to do it in their yard, if they're on a really small lot? What if the lot has already been paved over? There's all kinds of issues when you look at specific properties where it may not be realistic to actually come in with machinery, dig up your cesspool, and then install a septic tank. So that's a second big problem, is it could be way more costly than just your normal install, when normally when people put a septic system in, it's done on a vacant lot before the home is built, very easily accessible. You don't have to worry about breaking existing structures or walls or fences or other things to get into that area. So that's a big factor that I think hasn't been taken into account, is how realistic is it to actually do the construction? And are you just going to are you going to put people in jail for not doing it? Are you going to put, seniors on a fixed income in jail because they don't have the funds, the $100,000 to spend to do all of this modification to their property to put in a septic system? It's just not going to happen. So it's something you really have to think about. Adjustments are going to have to be made. The law is there. For the most part, I don't think it's reasonable on a lot of different levels, and it's going to have to change. So just take that into account. And again, it's 25 years into the future. And so it's not something you definitely have to worry about today. The one thing you do want to consider is that if you are going to make any upgrades or additional plumbing in the home, if you want to remodel or add on a bathroom, the counties are requiring you to do your septic system update now in order to get the permits to add wastewater to your home. So you're grandfathered in if you don't make any changes. Nobody's going to force you to do anything until 2050 if they force you at all. But if you are going to make any upgrades or change your plumbing or increase the amount of wastewater that you're producing, there will need to be an upgrade. So it's something to consider if you're looking to remodel or do any additions. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. You can reach out to me at dylan@buybigisland.com, and I'll see you guys next week. Aloha.